Like these industries are capital intensive, but if the ideas do not work, they fail miserably as well. And in history, a lot of these industries have done some expensive mistakes.
I think we have almost missed the silicon bus. Wow. We are going to miss gallium arsenide bus. We have missed indium phosphide bus. We have missed gallium nitride bus. We have missed silicon carbide bus.
Very warm welcome to NAMTECH, sir.
Thank you.
Before we jump into the nitty-gritties of advanced semiconductors, we would like to know your journey. So in semiconductors, you started very early, and usually there are some moments in life, either a professor inspired you, or maybe some problem that stuck in your mind, or it was a paper. What happened that you chose this field very early on before going for your PhD in US? I want to know your journey from your school days to college and what happened and why you chose this field.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to NAMTECH. It's been a good experience so far at NAMTECH. For me, it hasn't been a fortuitous type of situation. It has been during my UG. Once I finished, I knew about semiconductors. I mean, at least I learned during my UG classes semiconductor. That somehow fascinated me. Semiconductors fascinated me. And then when I happened to go for the entrance exam for IIT, then also the questions were all semiconductor related, interestingly. And of course, that time it was quite basic questions, doping, what is N-type, P-type. I went with interest, with a lot of interest in there for pursuing a PhD in semiconductors itself. So that was one to start with. So I began with knowingly jumping into something. And that is the time people in the science would know that I heard about the MOS concept, which has been the vehicle for all the semiconductor revolutions now. So yeah, and the MOS itself, and here is where I liked the professor too, my supervisor. So it combines with a very conscious mind and with a good professor in mind. I had to cut short my PhD at IIT for some personal reasons. But then that quest was always there in me that I should be continuing with this. And then, of course, within India, for some, again, personal reasons, I had to take up a job. And it was a very welcoming job, actually, to me. It was in one of the R&D establishments. And again, in a very practical way, I learned a lot of semiconductors. And I thought, it's not a diversion, but I thought India was pretty good at getting into semiconductors pretty early, actually. If I recall, in early 80s, almost from 80 onwards, I could see institutes, a manufacturing line in semiconductors at that time. I don't know, after that there was a lull or something, but it went down. But there was a lot of activity around good fab line, silicon fab line. I saw in IIT good silicon fab line, clean rooms, all the manufacturing or at least R&D scale equipment. So that was one. And then the R&D which I joined also gave me good exposure to, again, semiconductors. In life, the orientation, liking, one is, of course, to get a job and take up a job, what comes your way. The other one is choose your job. Or third one is you're fortunate to get your liking in one go itself. So to me, I thought I was fortunate to get my liking to start with. Yeah. So the R&D gave me good experience in some very extremely high frequency millimeter wave devices, making fabrication and all that, which I thoroughly experienced and thoroughly enjoyed. And that, honored me at a very young age, that encouraged me further. Now, but then again, there were greener pastures, I thought. So that's when I switched over to Singapore. I mean, I casually saw that a new big industry has walked into Singapore and they were eagerly looking for some manufacturing engineers, scientists. And when I happened to look at that paper, it happened to match my skill sets very well, actually. So again, casually I applied, casually I got it, casually I came to Singapore to pursue this. So it was a good combination, I thought, yeah.
Great to know that. As you progressed in your career, in your studies, you went to Singapore to complete your PhD from a very prestigious university, NUS. In some ways, your journey and Singapore's semiconductor journey is somewhat inseparable. You have seen Singapore growing from an scrappy electronic assembler to the state-of-the-art semiconductor ecosystem on a planet with a very limited resources. They have turned into something incredible. So I want you to take us through that journey, very unfiltered, very raw journey, where you would have seen not the gleaming pictures, but the unfinished canvases underneath. You would have seen the failures. So how the Singapore has done that, and what are the steps we should learn from the Singapore's journey of last 3-4 decades?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, and I think I can relate myself also. That was a time when the world saw the tigers of that part of the world in semiconductors. Yeah, a little bit of uncertainty was there that it was a short-term work type of thing, basically. So many of my peers and others were saying, you have a good thing out here in the country itself, why are you living with a lot of risk with a very short term? So that was the starting point, basically. Now, how it grew up, yes, it was again a very interesting journey for me, because I literally saw, when I went in just a year or 2 years back, the metro line had started just then. And that was fascinating to start with. I went to the company first day. That was again very fascinating. The work culture and just very high-tech building with lifts swirling up and down. And inside, again, a fab line, a big fab line with all the instrumentation out there. And so it was something, for a moment I thought, wow, will I be able to fit in this? That was the first apprehension I had. And well, I went in with a lot of confidence that I should be able to do well. So I think this is something which I think the prison students also should take into account. That confidence of doing well with your skill sets or whatever you have gained should be taken as an asset. With that asset, you have to get in. And then I thought I quickly adapted to the situation out there. I was given the charge of a lithography bay. I was a senior manufacturing engineer out there. And straight away, right from day one, I was in the job basically out there, but worked very hard. I had night shifts, and in a manufacturing line, I mean, I come from R&D, so at that stage, manufacturing line, no breaks, wafers, this is a finite number, has to come out with good yield and all that. So I was in the midst of all that, nighttime, any trouble, line should not stop, and all these were there. So I embraced all that, basically. The industries are pretty good, at least I found this industry very good. They were giving, at that time it was a Kaizen concept, improvements to improve, doesn't matter even if it's small, keep on improving. So to encourage that further, the company said, whoever gives good suggestions will get an incentive of $10 or something like that. So I used to observe very keenly what's going on and then give my suggestion and earn $10. $10 was a very big thing for me there. So, and one suggestion I remember very clearly I gave. So the operator was looking through the microscope with a stool out there. she was kind of inline metrology to look at that, pass it, and so I found her a little bit uncomfortable on the stool sitting. So I thought this was affecting a bit of throughput and maybe some mistakes, some human errors and all. So I just suggested that make the chair comfortable.
Wow.
So anyway, so these are all good experiences in that. So then the next stage was, as I said, my PhD quest was still there that I should be doing research. So I switched over to the NUS, and this time I switched over into a non-silicon material.
Okay.
So it was a 3-phi material, gallium arsenide, indium phosphorylated material. So the project was to make lasers of MB grown quaternary alloys, indium gallium arsenide phosphide, basically. So again, I worked day and night there, early in the morning, hooking up liquid nitrogen tankers on the big MB system, let it cool, and then grow the wafers, and then next day early in the morning to open the chamber to take out the samples and things like that. So it was, I wouldn't call it as strenuous, but enjoyable hard work, basically. So on the Singapore side, it was making great strides from then on, actually. From 1991, they had this National Science and Technology Board onward. So they were making 5-year plans every time. So at a later stage of my life, I actually got into this 5-year planning stage where inputs are sought from various institutes and organizations. So I was aware of what's going on, how much funding is coming into the thing, and what themes are being given. So it was a well thought of program, I thought, from the government, where they had clear view of what themes. So used to make calls on thematic calls and all that, inviting a lot of expats actually at that time. So I think the external forces also contributed a lot to the growth of that. And then, so they had different phases. Like one decade, it was labor intensive type. The other, it was capital intensive, just get all the facilities in place. Maybe there was another decade where knowledge based. Maybe then another subsequent knowledge comes innovation based type of. So they had some fantastic milestones, this encouraged or triggered for the society, the community to work towards that.
Well documented journey you have told us, and it's in a way quite inspiring the way you have told that incentivization scheme even at a shop floor level, not only at the equipment manufacturers level. So coming back to the last part of what you were telling, that you had gained some of experience at institutes like A-Star, NTU, just wanted to expand that question a bit more, that if I say one of the premium organizations in Singapore history, which has connected research with industries, I could say very fairly A-Star has done a wonderful job over there. So I just wanted to know the psychology, the funding, the style of leadership, how they gain the talent, and what are their long-term and short-term visions were there, because you have spent almost more than 2 decades in that prestigious institute. So what has been your learnings which you can share with us so that we can maybe think from an Indian perspective of implementing those things?
I think it was a very small entity to start with, A-Star as such. And as the first is, the theme itself was very good, to have a very systematic R&D which bridges between the academic and the industry. Basically, if it can, I don't know if I can say a last mile kind of thing, if it can do something towards that before it's churned out to that. So it was a very unique or very purposeful thought to start with. And the way it grew up was not, see, again, as you know, it is a collection of institutes. And these institutes came over a period, but very systematically. And this systematic vision was based on demand of the community and where the world is moving. IT industry was growing up, software, then come on, let's have a software related. Then communication, come on, infotech type of thing came up. So, and then not only in the physical space, basically, or physical sciences, there was a lot later on in the biomedical. I probably have to give full marks to the government who was supporting a lot through funding, basically. Majority of the labs out there or the institutes, they had a lot of foreign crowd there, right? So all this contributed well to the organization, basically, I would say. Community was changing, maybe SMEs need more help, so collaborate more with industry or giving, and then encourage startups. So it requires, again, incentives, basically, yes, to say that, hey, you better open a startup if you have a good idea. Why don't you? Or they had schemes like seconding people to industry. If you have some expertise, why don't you go and industry and help them to solve the problem? Put them there. 1 year, 2 years, or whatever that period is there. Then, and somewhere try to give some funding in between, innovation, some innovative, promising idea to the market. Maybe some more funding for development. Why go elsewhere? Maybe give some funding to bridge this kind of thing. So all this made, I think, the organization what it is, basically. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So it's not just one factor which influences, it's a complete package. Ecosystem, it has to evolve, and then it attracts the industry. So there is one thing which always comes to my mind when it comes to semiconductor is huge capital intensive. And the second thing which comes to my mind when I read about the history of semiconductor is sustaining the success. So if I combine these two things, I come to another set of questions, which is like these industries are capital intensive, but if the ideas do not work, they fail miserably as well. And in history, a lot of these industries have done some expensive mistakes. And India is at that verge, which is starting a new chapter in this semiconductor growth. According to your experience in last 30, 40 years of semiconductor journey, what are the pitfalls India should avoid, first of all, to start this chapter? And second of all, based on your Singapore experience, to sustain this journey, because sustaining is, I feel it's more tougher than even starting it.
That's right. I was having come to this earth much earlier, probably, and having put in more than 4 decades into semiconductors, all the while in semiconductors. In fact, I've seen the exit of vacuum tubes. So then I used to tell my colleagues, I think we have almost missed the silicon bus. I knew about 3-5 materials when I was doing my PhD and all that. When I visit here, I see, wow, we are going to miss gallium arsenide bus. We have missed indium phosphide bus. We have missed gallium nitride bus. We have missed silicon carbide bus. So this missing the buses was going on and on. So I'm happy to learn, actually, now that he's making great strides, from the highest level, investment-wise, encouraging more, companies in the value chain of come in the semiconductor value chain. Now, pitfalls you asked, that's a very valid point, actually. What do we learn? You see, world has gone far ahead in terms of, even if we technically understand Moore's law, dimension of a gate, which defines everything, basically, how technologically advanced you are. It's sub 10 nanometers. We didn't attempt to catch up, so that's why the big difference has come now. So it's a bit difficult to catch up with this technological advancements. A few decades ahead, actually, it has gone in various forms, basically, in forms of technology, know-how, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of peripheral infrastructures, main peripheral structure, then in terms of the hardware required, in terms of skill sets required. Although on the design part, fantastic. Almost 20% contribution is from this part. So what are the pitfalls? And then very early the world realized that wherever there's labor intensive should be taken away from, the big Intel and all they used to make microprocessors. We're probably the only one at that time when it comes to front-end fabrication and all. So when it came to packaging and all, or even memory, they pushed it out. So then the other countries gained and they became giants basically. So it is what it is basically. So now we have to catch up with all that now. So as you know, in the value chain, right from silicon sand, substrate purified, almost zero defect substrate onwards, we have to start to make a product which incorporates high-end chips basically. So that value chain is very big. There's no dearth of intelligence, no dearth of talent, no dearth of numbers. Now, sooner we get those numbers in place, put them on skills, training, and get them the relevant opportunities, that is the mantra basically. So there has to be a mushroom growth of entities, organization. I guess one of them is NAMTECH itself, where after graduating, although it could be electronics, electrical engineering, or even slight mechanical related ones a little bit, I think the organization is trying to give some very applied kind of certificate or a coaching to gear them up or make it ready for the industry. I mean, this is a great idea, I think. And many more should be coming up like this, basically, like that, so that they have, before going for, when they come to India, before saying, I need to train them, so why don't you give me some trained one? So there you are answering their call actually there. So I think that's number one. There should be many such entities fast, and they should be having some minimal resources there so that they get some hands-on training before they go into the jump, bigger quantum jump, they go into the industry. Heavy training centers, which goes with that. Skills manpower. And I think I see a lot of initiatives being taken within the country to get them trained outside also. So that is also going on basically, which is again, I mean, we need end of the day training and then coming back and then setting up something. So wherever the good practices are there, it's good to get that practice basically. So I think it's an on, but I think we should probably leverage on our design expertise more actually. Maybe these design expertise, I can understand why that expertise is going on, because limited resources in terms of really hardware. So they grow on that path. But then they should be also used next in terms of maybe the advanced packaging is coming, the architectures, thermomechanical aspects. I think the designers probably should pay some attention more towards that also for the OSAT industry. So, which is a positive thing, which can be, but used positively should be for the OSAT industries.
So there are a few words which came out of your last answer, for instance, the Moore's law and the design industry. So I have few questions around that, and like regarding the Moore's law, if I say it is now slowing down, and the biggest reason is packaging, and one of the great advantage in Indian ecosystem, was set up by India Semiconductor Mission in the ISM 1.0, where they have like trying to set up almost 10 centers by giving good incentive to those organizations. Out of those 10, 9 are in packaging domain. However, when I look from a different perspective and coming back to the Moore's law, I feel that apart from some big names, if I exclude some big names, majority of them are starting with a legacy packaging, and we know that it is becoming obsolete. It is almost very difficult to extract profits out of it unless you have a very large scale of manufacturing. And in this advanced packaging domain, the heterogeneous packaging, how do you see these industries going forward? How they are going to bridge those gaps? Are the partnerships, or they require funding, or they require industry academia support, or they need something else? I want to know your opinion on the advanced packaging side and how to bridge that gap.
Yeah. I'll be very honest on this basically, right? You see, in fact, I was approached for one of the OSAT to advise Is it the right way? You see, the Moore's law, one of the reasons, of course, the big reason is the advanced packaging which has come into play. Also, the geometries which were talked about has almost come to the limit, basically. I mean, shrunk to that extent. We are almost at the atomic scale right now, atom by atom type of thing, basically. Now, so we reached 1, 2 nanometer. The Moore's law to start with this Gordon Moore was a trigger which was mentioned, that's all. Which, it was a blessing in disguise. That trigger or that statement was a big incentive and impetus for so many industries to contribute towards that. Went on. Let's prove this right. And then it came to this level. So now, advanced packaging, now people thought that chip, high density, limit has reached. I make fantastic billions and billions of transistors out there. But then I'm not satisfied with one. So system on chip, all these things came up basically. Now, or a package, I want something more than that. I want more and more information. I want my mobile with everything in that. So what does it mean? So you need to assemble all those fantastic chips together. So fantastic chips means you have to package it together. So different approaches. Okay, let me not have a package as such. Let me do away with the package itself. Let me put on a substrate itself. Let me chip on chip, chip on wafer, chip on the panel itself, basically. So these advancements, the quest was always there. And then package more and more. So this way, we had, fine. No more space. This way, we're only, okay, go this way, skyscrapers. So now this, but then coming back to your question of when the technology is developing this way, yes, you are right. Conventional, that's probably the only way. And the only way with the hope that there will be customers for this, where all the things which are going on in the world for packaging, for the conventional ones, may come to this place. So we are there to cater for them. But you are right. Should we not be stepping into heterostructures, heterogeneous integration, 3D, 2.5, the whole world is talking about where there's a capacity, where there are challenges to be solved. But then, what is the input for all this? We lack still the input for this, right? What kind of heterogeneous packaging for what we do?
Here in India?
Yeah. We need to get chips, right?
Yes.
Fine. So, one way would be let all the big names, all the big chips in whichever way, and whatever integration level they're talking about, let the chips come to here. But then, do we have the technology? Right? Technology, okay, let the technology also come. We should encourage that. Okay, the next generation of heterogeneous integration to be done in this part of the world. How? Well, it will take some time for the technology. So, we get everything. Problem also, customers also, big manufacturers also for the chips, R&D for 3D also here, along with the companies basically. Alone it could be a bit of a problem basically. So yeah, this is a pitfall which probably answers your question, the rest.
And the second part of your that answer was which intrigued me in some ways about the design part. And you were talking, and we very well know that India produces almost 19% of world design engineers. We are the third largest, I would say, the producers of, I should not put it in that word, but we are producing a lot of engineers. Yeah. However, we don't own the IP. If we say ARM is there, Synopsys is there, Cadence is there, who owns the IP of these? And there is that particular sector in that value chain has a most number of value addition. Coming to Indian geography, Indian context, I feel few of these new companies are coming in this domain. I just wanted to take your side and your foresight. how do you see this going forward? These startups which are being incentivized through, say, DLI schemes, government is pushing for a lot of these softwares which are being given for free of cost, which are multi-million dollar investments.
Cadence synopsis.
The cadence synopsis. How do you see the infrastructure growing in terms of the design? Will it be sufficient, or we need to do even more than that?
Yeah. You see, I mean, I'm sure a great job is being done in encouraging universities. As it is, I think it was good, but then they've enhanced it further by, offering the new schemes and then giving softwares. And probably all the engineers who come into the universities have some exposure of the design. And very popular, I remember, even 4 decades back, here in India, I used to hear about VLSI design. I mean, it's become a standard VLSI, although the world has gone well beyond VLSI.
Yes.
But the term VLSI still remains, basically. So, and the design, I remember, in fact, I've read the history of the whole semiconductor value chain. So there is, Mead Conway from Caltech, actually, they came up with a book of stick diagrams of design. Oh, that opened the whole arena of design, basically. That's where people thought that design is interested, and somehow this part of the world got interested in designing because the resources are less in the infrastructure. It's less forgiving in that. So now coming back to this, I think what is key is a very good initiative of some kind, the products and the design. You see, now the designers are very capable designers. The brain is in there. A lot of tools are there. A lot of AI is also being put into design. But then, what do I design? What new thing should I design? I guess the hope is with all these teaching more and more, giving more and more incentives to these designers, someday new design made in this part of the world with your IP owned from this side might come up, basically. So that is the hope. Because unless I articulate a fantastic product with a fantastic performance for which a new design is required, you can't make a big mark on that. Otherwise, design is so deep-rooted, as you rightly said,
Got it.
to get what more can we add.
True.
So the product engineers, the application engineers, and there's so much of scope. For instance, defense, for instance. What kind of system do you require? So what kind of chips do you require? Can you articulate that? These kind of chips, highly customized. Customized means it's your IP. You design. And design skill is there. There goes.
Leverage. With all this technical knowledge which we gain in this session, sir, one thing I still keep coming to my mind was your response when you said that I thought about that person who was sitting on a metrology chair and his chair was uncomfortable. And this is not something which is, I put it in the category of engineering, I put it in the category of a behavioral or a personal aspect. And beyond this, your experience, 4 decades of experience in semiconductor technology, we came to know that you have written some books. So usually the scientists or researchers, they keep their personal life and their professional life very separate, and in fact their personal life they do not put it on paper, and you find the courage to put your personal lives where you have mentioned a lot of things, and you gain some interest, especially in the, I would say, the Eastern philosophies of yoga and spirituality. On the last question of this talk, I wanted to ask you about the pearls of wisdom from your personal life, which think that they are not mentioned in your CV. Okay, so thank you for asking me that question. And I think it seems you had the opportunity to peep into my sites, on the LinkedIn and on the web. Yeah, I have written at least one book on this. Now, to be short, actually, I would say, although it is full of challenges, it's been full of challenges, and but still I would say nature has been kind. I still put it as nature is kind.
and for several reasons also. So now coming back to this, oh yes, there has been a very challenging personal life. Now, there are some very interesting things which I thought I discovered later in managing all this. So it's like looking behind. If I just look behind and say, wow, did I go through all this? It is like that for me. Because of the following reasons. One is acceptance in life. So whatever has happened, the most tragic thing which has happened in my lifetime, I never panicked. And I try to accept it. First thing is I accept it. Because I feel unless I accept, I can't move forward. So I accept it and then I move forward again because I see the big picture of life. I always see the big picture of life. In that context of big picture of life, I consider myself a minuscule. So what is a cry about when you're such a small entity? But then the truth is, I have to go home and have my dinner. That is the truth. Whatever happens, the truth is that. So I believed always in that there is a next step, which is I have to go home and have dinner. That's a reality. So if I don't think in those terms, I can't move forward, number one. Big picture also I mentioned. Third was, although, if people read, I only talked about challenges. What are those challenges? I think they should probably look into the book, and then I don't think in the short while I can express everything. But then one would realize that with those challenges, it's very difficult to survive. It's rather a great challenge to survive itself with all those challenges, basically. But then I wanted to move on. I wanted to address it. There were so many hardships on that. So from a philosophy point, I kept my mind and heart or whatever part it is in the body well aligned. People say, oh, your heart is thinking this way, brain is thinking this way, this is thinking that way. I didn't want to think in those multidirectional ways. So I aligned myself. What it's individual's practice or whatever it may be. Second thing is, I have kept myself extremely busy throughout my life. I never allowed my mind to take rest. So I would have, even after all those challenging things which is happening, in the evening I would go out and have a game of tennis, singles game with a person half my age.
Wow.
And try to beat him. That's how I take out my days, whatever you may say, work or tiring or the tiresome mood or whatever it is. And then at night, for the mental faculty, I would go for puzzles and some humor. So I would see the stand-up comedy, give a laugh. So that's also a very strong motivator, I feel. And then my days are extremely busy and start very early in the morning. And somewhere down the line, I thought maybe I should, as it is, I had disciplined myself in a very big way. It was self-imposed discipline. In fact, you will not believe I also discipline. In fact, I wanted to give an example when I do statistical process control. I monitor my weight through statistical process control. How I take the weight over a period of 6 months or 3 to 6 months, take the standard deviation, how much is the variation in that, take the mean, and then take a normal curve, and I see in which sigma I'm falling. Whether I'm falling in 6 sigma or 3 sigma or 2 sigma, so then accordingly I direct my. So you see, it's a real practical way of pushing and then put some sense into the understanding of 6 sigma.
Wow.
So that also gave me discipline. Okay, I should do yoga also. So yoga is more for my physical, and so I leave it to you to judge my age. Yeah. But then, more than that, this is something which I wanted to give back to the society actually. So I take free lessons for yoga. For the last 10 years, I've been teaching yoga free, for which I could have made something. But then that's not my profession, so I just teach for the benefit of others. So now I have a passion to contribute to this part of the world, and where I can share my experience and knowledge, basically. I mean, otherwise this knowledge is for what, basically? I mean, it's for sharing only, right?
Yes.
So that's why I always aspire to have a big decision-making role. I always look for now at some place a decision-making role where, with all your understanding of the past, you can contribute to the society and the well-being, basically. So that's been the journey, basically. So I still feel, and very important, if you give me, if money makes happy, if you give me huge money, I will not jump 6 feet high. If something so tremendous, I'll not go 6 feet deep. So develop the equanimity type of approach in life, basically. A balanced way approach.
It was very nice. I mean, I still feel that a 1 hour session do not justify to know more about, and I wish to have more such sessions with you. We, as a Department of Semiconductor Manufacturing, we all are really grateful. The thing which you left us to guess your age, I would say you are the youngest of all of us here, and we are really grateful. You have spent whole day with the same energy, and I'm really indebted to your efforts, sir. Thank you so much for contributing to this growth success of India Semiconductor.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, I enjoyed this visit, and all the colleagues out here who have made this possible, and wishing all the best, basically, to NAMTECH. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.